Do y'all ever remember hearing that saying, you are what you eat? And usually it was because, somebody would eat a lot of chicken or somebody would eat a lot of, broccoli or something. And so, somebody would be like, you are what you eat, eat a lot of pork. You are a pig because you eat a lot of pork, something like that. Well, as funny as it sounds, spiritually, it's actually true. You are, in fact, what you eat. And that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, let's get into it. Before I get into the actual content of the episode, I just want to take a brief moment to just a public service announcement. So, the past week or so, I have gotten 4 emails. I don't know any of these people. I don't even know why they're emailing me, but I think it needs to be said because I'm getting emails about people that want to partner with this show. Some of them want to talk about sex. Some of them want to talk about kundalinis and spiritual awakenings and all this other stuff. And I'm just going to say, please read the room. None of that has any place on this podcast, talking about Yahuwah and how he is Kadash, holy, set apart. That's Babylonian things. Please, by all means, if you're listening to this and that pops into your head, please do not think of this podcast because this is not the podcast for you. Find a podcast that's talking about those things and by all means reach out to them. But do not reach out to me if that is what you are intending to talk about. This podcast was set up by Yahuwah, for Yahuwah, to Yahuwah's chosen, set apart people. Okay? If that's not you, feel free to continue to listen, but do not email me unless you want to talk about something in Yahuwah's kingdom, Yahuwah himself, or his son, Yahushua HaMashiach. All right. Moving along. So to start with, I'm just going to read Deuteronomy, Debar Yam 14, the whole chapter. So y'all know how my reading skills are, so just bear with me, okay? You are the children of Yahuwah Eluah. You shall not cut yourselves, nor make any baldness between your eyes for the dead. For you are Kadash people unto Yahuwah Eluah, and Yahuwah has chosen you to be a peculiar people unto himself. Above all the nations that are upon the earth, you shall not eat any abominable thing. These are the beasts which you shall eat: the ox, the sheep, the goat, the deer, and the roebuck, and the fallow deer, and the wild goat, and the pygarg, and the wild ox, and the chamois. Y'all already know about my pronouncing these weird words. And every beast that parts the hoof and cleaves the cleft into 2 claws and chews the cud among the beasts that you shall eat. Nevertheless, these you shall not eat of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the cloven hoof, as the camel and the hare and the coney, for they chew the cud, but divide not the hoof. Therefore they are unclean unto you. And the swine, because it divides the hoof, yet chews not the cud, it is unclean unto you. You shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their dead carcass. These you shall eat of all that are in the waters. All that have fins and scales shall you eat, and whatsoever has not fins and scales you may not eat. It is unclean unto you. Of all clean birds you shall eat, but these are they of which you shall not eat: the eagle and the ossifrage and the osprey, and the glede and the kite and the vulture after his kind, and every raven after his kind, and the owl and the night hawk and the cacao after his kind, the little owl and the great owl and the swan, and the pelican and the gear eagle and the cormorant, and the stork and the heron after her kind, and the lapwing and the bat, and every creeping thing that flies is unclean unto you. They shall not be eaten. But of all clean fowls you may eat. You shall not eat of anything that dies of itself. You shall give it unto the stranger that is in your gates, that you may eat it, or you may sell it unto an alien. For you are Kadash people unto Yahuwah Eluah. You shall not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. You should truly tithe all the increase of your seed that the field brings forth year by year. And you shall eat before Yahuwah in the place which he shall choose to place his name there, the tithe of your grain, of your wine, and of your oil, and the firstlings of your herds and of your flocks, that you may learn to fear Yahuwah always. And if the way be too long for you, so that you are not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from you, which Yahuwah shall choose to set his name there, then Yahuwah has blessed you. When Yahuwah has blessed you, apologies, then shall you turn it into money, and bind up the money in your hand, and shall go unto the place which Yahuwah shall choose, and you shall bestow that money for whatsoever your soul lusts after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever your soul desires. And you shall eat there before Yahuwah, and you shall rejoice, you and your household, and the Levite that is within your gates. You shall not forsake him, for he has no part nor inheritance with you. At the end of the 3 years you shall bring forth all the tithe of your increase the same year, and shall lay it up within your gates. And the Levite, because he has no part nor inheritance with you, and the stranger, and the fatherless, and the widow, which are within your gates, shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that Yahuwah may bless you in all the work of your hand which you do. Now, before I continue, I just want to go to Leviticus 11 and read from there as well. So Leviticus 11 reads as follows: And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe and unto Aaron, saying unto them, Speak unto the children of Yashar'al, saying, These are the beasts which you shall eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Whatsoever parts the hoof and is cloven-footed, and chews the cud among the beasts, that shall you eat. Nevertheless, these shall you not eat of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the hoof. As the camel, because he chews the cud, but divides not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the coney, because he chews the cud, but divides not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the hare, because he chews the cud, but divides not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the swine, though he divides the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he chews not the cud, he is unclean to you. Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch, they are unclean to you. These shall you eat of all that are in the waters, whatsoever has fins and scales in the waters, in the seas, and in the rivers, them shall you eat. And all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and of any living thing which is in the waters, they shall be an abomination unto you. They shall be even an abomination unto you. You shall not eat of their flesh, but you shall have their carcasses in abomination. Whatsoever has no fins nor scales in the waters, that shall be an abomination unto you. And these are they which you shall have an abomination among the fowls. They shall not be eaten. They are an abomination: the eagle and the ossifish and the osprey and the vulture and the kite after his kind, every raven after his kind, and the owl and the nighthawk and the cuckoo and the hawk after his kind, and the little owl and the cormorant and the great owl and the swan and the pelican and the gier eagle and the stork and the heron after her kind, and the lapwing and the bat, all fowls that creep up going upon all four, shall be an abomination unto you. Yet these may you eat of every flying creeping thing that goes upon all four, which have legs above their feet to leap withal upon the earth. Even these to them you may eat: the locust after his kind, and the bald locust after his kind, and the beetle after his kind, and the grasshopper after his kind. But all other flying creeping things which have 4 feet shall be an abomination unto you. And for these you shall be unclean. Whosoever touches the carcass of them shall be unclean until the even. And whosoever bears aught of the carcass of them shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. The carcasses of every beast which divides the hoof and is not cloven-footed, nor chews the cud, are unclean unto you. Every one that touches them shall be unclean. And whatsoever goes upon his paws among all manner of beasts that go on all four, those are unclean unto you. Whosoever touches their carcasses shall be unclean until the evening. And he that bears the carcass of them that shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even, they are unclean unto you. These also shall be unclean unto you among the creeping things that creep upon the earth, the weasel and the mouse and the tortoise after his kind, and the ferret and the chameleon and the lizard and the snail and the mole. These are unclean to you among all that creep. Whosoever touches them, when they be dead, shall be unclean until the evening. And upon whatsoever any of them, when they are dead, does fall, it shall be unclean, whether it be any vessel of wood or raiment or skin or sack, whatsoever vessel it be, wherein any work is done, it must be put into water, and it shall be unclean until the evening. So it shall be cleansed. And every earthen vessel whereinto any of them falls, whatsoever is in it shall be unclean, and you shall break it. Of all meat which may be eaten, that on which such water comes shall be unclean, and all drink that may be drunk in every such vessel shall be unclean. And everything whereupon any part of their carcass falls shall be unclean, whether it be oven or ranges for pots, they shall be broken down, for they are unclean, and shall be unclean unto you. Nevertheless, a fountain or pit wherein there is plenty of water shall be clean. But that which touches their carcass shall be unclean. And if any part of their carcass falls upon any sowing seed which is to be sown, it shall be clean. But if any water be put upon the seed, and any part of their carcass fall thereon, it shall be unclean unto you. And if any beast of which you may eat die, he that touches the carcass thereof shall be unclean until the even. And he that eats of the carcass of it shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening. He that also touches that bears the carcass of it shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. And every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth shall be an abomination. It shall not be eaten. Whatsoever goes upon the belly, and whatsoever goes upon all four, or whatsoever has more feet among all creeping things that creep upon the earth, them you shall not eat, for they are an abomination. You shall not make yourselves abominable with any creeping thing that creeps, neither shall you make yourselves unclean with them, that you should be defiled thereby. For I am Yahuwah. You shall therefore sanctify yourselves, and you shall be Kadash, for I am Kadash. Neither shall you defile yourselves with any manner of creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. For I am Yahuwah, that brings you up out of the land of Mitzrayim, to be your Eluah. You shall therefore be Kadash, for I am Kadash. This is the Torah of the beast, and of the fowl, and of every living creature that moves in the waters, and of every creature that creeps upon the earth, to make a difference between the unclean and the clean, and between the beast that may be eaten and the beast that may not be eaten. Okay, so that was a lot, but that was the dietary laws that was given to our ancestors, the Israelites, back in the day during this time. And it's a whole lot in there. I'm only going to cover what Yahuwah has me covering. But I will say, let me give my disclaimer. I do still believe that we shouldn't be eating these things because, for one, pork, for instance, that was one of the things, swine, it mentioned it in both those chapters. Pork gives you high blood pressure, right? Tastes delicious, gives you high blood pressure. Not to mention that pigs literally eat everything, including a person. If you were to put a dead body in front of it, it would eat that. You really don't want to eat that after it's eaten a person, because going back to that cliche statement, you are what you eat, right? Then, because it'll literally start seeping through your pores and everything. And then also think about, eating shrimp. Now, mind you, these are things that I personally used to love to eat, but I don't eat it anymore. But eating shrimp, for instance, shrimp are literally like the roaches of the sea. They're bottom feeders. Shrimp, crawfish. Think about what they eat. Like, if you were to put like a shrimp inside of a tank, it's going to clean that tank. That's literally its job. That's one of the creatures in the sea that cleans it up. You know what I'm saying? You eat that. So you're literally eating a water roach. That's what I'm just going to call it, a water roach. You're eating a roach. I don't think I know anybody that will pull a cockroach off the wall if they saw it in their house and be like, this looks like a yummy snack. You know what I'm saying? But that's literally what we're doing when we pull them out the ocean. But that's not what this is about, though. Because remember, we worship Yahuwah in Ruach and in truth, in spirit and in truth. So with that being said, we're going to discuss the spiritual aspects behind this. So when you go back to the clean animals, we'll start with the clean animals, okay? So clean animals are all the animals, as far as the beasts are concerned, that split the hoof and chew the cud. They have to do both. So when you think about it, an animal with a split hoof, when you do your research, animals with split hooves are able to traverse any terrain. That's the reason why you see billy goats on the side of mountains just chilling, like steep mountains just chilling, because of the way their hooves are shaped. You know what I'm saying? That is the reason why the animal has to have the cloven hoof. But then when you go to chewing the cud, so I always use the example of a cow. A cow does not have 4 stomachs. It has 4 chambers of its stomach. And what it does is, because they don't have the enzymes within their stomach that we have that breaks down food into like mush. So what they do is they consume a large amount of food. They swallow it. It goes into the first chamber of their stomach. And then small portions of that food are regurgitated back into their mouth for them to chew it down even further. And so this is the process that it goes through. And once it's all chewed down even further, it goes to the next chamber and the next chamber and so on and so forth. But that chewing the cud, spiritually, the reason why this is important is because as children of Yahuwah, we should be able to traverse any terrain that he sends us on, no matter how difficult it is, because we are sons and daughters of Yahuwah through Yahushua HaMashiach. And since Yahushua already overcame the world, so have we. So the clean animals are us, if you haven't guessed that by now. And then chewing the cud, same thing. Yahuwah said that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds forth out of his mouth, right? So when he's given us instructions or commandments, leading and guiding us, when we're reading his word, I'll give you the example for me. Yahuwah has had me to start doing this. I'll take Genesis, for instance. He'll have me wake up and like read one chapter of Genesis. The next morning, I read the next chapter. And I keep doing that until I complete all 50 chapters of Genesis. And then on that 51st day, he has me start back over with Genesis. And he'll have me do that until he tells me to stop and pay attention to chapter 1. And then he'll have me in chapter 1 for however long he has me in chapter 1. And then he'll have me in chapter 2. And then that's where I'll be. And that's what he does. He'll have me consume a whole bunch of his word, and then he'll stop me and have me pay attention to this particular chapter. Sometimes it's just a week. Sometimes it's 2 weeks. Sometimes it's a whole month. But I won't move out of that chapter until he tells me it's okay to go to the next chapter. So that's what he has me doing. He has me consuming a whole bunch of his word. And then after it's inside of my Ruach, then when he has me to focus on that one chapter that's just like the cow spitting up small portions of what they just ate, what they just consumed, and chewing it down even further, because that's usually what Yahuwah does. He starts breaking it down even further to me, that particular chapter. And when I move on to the next, he does the same thing. And some of the things that it has helped me to do, is first and foremost, has helped me to remember what he has said better than I could before. But also when I'm in a place where I'm telling someone something, maybe it's a teaching moment, even though I'm not a teacher, but it might be a teaching moment. Not only can I tell them what his word says, but my recall of where it was said is even better. And in a teaching moment, the reason why recall is important is because you want to be able to tell the person where they can go and research it themselves. In a normal conversation, you can just have, say what Yahuwah said. But again, I do believe if you're in a teaching moment, show the person where it is so they can go see for themselves, and they can also go to Yahuwah about it. You know what I'm saying? So I've noticed that those things it helps. Not to mention, I'll just be having regular conversations, and I won't even be thinking about what Yahuwah's word says. For instance, we'll be having a conversation about the grocery store. inflation, right? And I'll start talking to the person, and then I'll say something, and then after it comes out of my mouth, I'll be like, wow, that's in such and such and such and such. And it's usually whatever book that I've been reading for the past month or two. You know what I'm saying? When I was in the book of John, I was in the book of John for almost a year, the book of Yehukanan. And so I started realizing a lot of the things that I was saying and focusing on and talking to people about was stuff that was related to that particular book. Now one of the books that I'm in is Matthew, and I'm starting to notice the same thing. A lot of the things that I'm paying attention to, talking about, so on and so forth, are stuff that I have read about in Matthew, but subconsciously I'm doing it. I don't even realize that it's happening until I think about what it is just came out of my mouth, and I'm like, oh, well, that's in Matthew 7, for instance. You know what I'm saying? So because I ate the word is what comes up out of me, right? Now, I will admit, Yahuwah has not given me a revelation about the correlation between us and, the fish, the fins and the scales as far as the fish are concerned, and the fowls, the clean fowls that we are to eat. So he only gave me the revelation about the land animals, because we don't fly and we're not naturally in the water. We don't live in the water. We are land animals ourselves. So he only gave me the revelation as us being spiritually the clean beasts. Okay? And so I just want to take you to a few verses, let me take you there real quick. Let me stop trying to say what it is I'm trying to say. Also, I don't have my earpiece in today while I'm recording this, so you might hear some background noises. You might hear me moving around. But again, as I've said in another episode, this is real life. So if you hear me flipping pages or me moving around in my seat, it is what it is, okay? As long as it's not too loud. I hope it's not too loud. If it is too loud, let me know, and I might be able to edit the clip and then re-upload it so you don't hear all the background stuff. All right, so the first thing I want to read is Luke 10:38-42. Now it came to pass as they went that they entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house, and she had a sister called Maryam, which also sat at Yahusha's feet and heard his word. That's key. That's verse 39, which also sat at Yahusha's feet and heard his word. She was eating. But Martha was cumbered about much serving, and came to him and said, Adonai, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me. Apologies, that may's not in there. And Yahusha answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, you are careful and troubled about many things. Now listen to this. But one thing is needful, and Maryam has chosen that good part, which shall not be taken away from her. So Yahusha's like, she's sitting at my feet and she's learning. That will not be taken from her, and it's that good part. So Yahusha's letting us know that learning from him, eating his word, he's the word of Yahuwah. And so the things that he spoke is the things that he heard his father say. So when you're listening to him, you're listening to Yahuwah, right? Which is why he's the word of Yahuwah. So with that being said, you're eating Yahuwah's word by sitting at Yahusha's feet and learning from him, okay? The next one that I want to do is Matthew chapter 11, 28-30. Okay, so that reads, Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn of me. For I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So again, this is Yahusha now. This is Yahusha speaking. This is the second time that we've heard him say that, learn from him. Learning from him is what we're supposed to do. That's what makes you a student or a disciple or a lamud. Okay? And then Yehukanan 6:45-59 is the last thing. And that reads, It is written in the prophets, and they shall all be taught, and they shall be all taught of Yahuwah. Every man, therefore, that has heard and has learned of the Father comes unto me. So this is Yahusha speaking again. He's letting you know that if you have heard from Yahuwah and learned from Yahuwah, you're going to be able to come to Yahusha. If you haven't been doing these things, if you haven't heard from Yahuwah and you haven't learned from Yahuwah, you're not going to be able to come to Yahusha, right? And right before that, if you go up one more verse to verse 44, he literally says, no man can come unto me except the Father which has sent me draws him, and I will raise him up at the last day. So you remember the exchange between him and Peter, him and Kappa, where he was like, well, he was talking to all his Lamudiyam, but he said, who do men say that I am? And Kappa was like, you are Hamashiach. And then Yahusha said, flesh and blood did not reveal this unto you, but my Father who is in the Shamayam, right? So he's letting you know, you can't even, first of all, we can't get to the Father without going through the Son. So you can't even get to the Son without the Father drawing you to the Son. You see what I'm saying? So without Yahuwah waking you up and drawing you to Yahusha, you can't get to Yahuwah because you got to go through Yahusha, but you don't know to go through Yahusha because Yahuwah didn't wake you up and draw you to Yahusha. See what I'm saying? All right. Let me continue. So verse 46. Not that any man has seen the Father, save he who is of Yahuwah. He has seen the Father. Aman, aman, I say unto you, he that believes on me has everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which comes down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eats of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. The Yehudayim therefore strove among themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? Then Yahusha said unto them, aman, aman, I say unto you, except you eat the flesh of the son of Adam and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoso eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He that eats my flesh and drinks my blood dwells in me, and I in him. You are what you eat. As the living Father has sent me, and I live by the Father, so he that eats me, even he shall live by me. This is that bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers did eat manna and are dead, but he that eats of this bread shall live forever. These things said he in the synagogue, as he taught in Capernaum. So he's teaching. So again, we have to become disciples of Yahusha, okay? That's very important. But you can't even come to Yahusha unless Yahuwah is drawing you. So learn from him. And you know what? What Yahuwah had me to actually do was the reason, I believe the reason why he had me in John Yehukanan for so long was because that is the one part of the Besorah where it focuses on the being Yahusha and not just what Yahusha did. The other three focus on what he did, more so Matthew than Luke and Mark, but Yehukanan, John, focuses on the actual person of Yahusha. And I really started paying attention and getting to know like who Yahusha is as Yahusha, not just the things that he's able to do, but who he actually is, you know? So moving on to the unclean, okay? So when it comes to the unclean animals, as you can probably already imagine, it was listed in both Deuteronomy and Leviticus when I read it that unclean animals either have cloven hooves, as far as the land animals are concerned. They either have cloven hooves but don't chew the cud, or they chew the cud and don't have cloven hooves. You have to have one or the other. So going back to what I was talking about as far as what those two mean. So if you have the cloven hooves but you don't chew the cud, that means that you're able to traverse all types of terrain, but you're not consuming the word. So the word is your sword. So you don't have a sword. So you're out here out in the open, just weaponless. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not retaining anything. You're just eating, but it's just coming out of you, but it's not sticking anywhere. You're not retaining it. You're not meditating on it. And we're going to get to that in a second. And on the other side of that, if you chew the cud, so you're constantly studying in the word, but you don't have cloven foot, as soon as something comes along, you're gonna, throw up your hands and be like, what is this? As soon as a storm comes along, all of a sudden you want to quit because you got a lot of the word in you, and you can probably quote verbatim what some of these scriptures are saying and so on and so forth, but you're not able to stand. You're not able to stand because you're not sure-footed. You don't have cloven hooves. You know what I'm saying? So those are usually those outside of Yahuwah's house, and you can be part of Yashar'al and still be outside of Yahuwah's house. So when you think about the reprobates, for instance, that it talks about in what we call the New Testament, those reprobates, Yahuwah gave them over to the desires of their heart. You know what I'm saying? So these are still Israelites, because in order to be a reprobate, you have to know Yahuwah, you have to be awakened, and then you turn from Him and Yahusha. So these are people that know Yahuwah and Yahusha, but they chose to walk away. Those are reprobates. And it's not an obvious choosing to walk away. It's just you not listening, you constantly being disobedient to Yahuwah to the point where you're grieving Ruach HaKodesh. And so Yahuwah just finally gives you over to that, because obviously that's what you want instead of what He's telling you. So, but these are Israelites. This is Yashar'al. But they're outside of the house, because you can't come in the house unless you get cleaned off. You know what I'm saying? So a few of the, and I meant to say those are those that are spiritually outside of Yahuwah's house. And that's also including the fallen angels. They're no longer within Yahuwah's house either, right? So, and that's usually who's speaking through these earthen vessels anyway, but or at least influencing them. So some of the scripts, or some of the word that reflects this, is Matthew 16, 6 and 12. This is also Yahusha teaching his Lamud Yam, but listen to what he says. Then Yahusha said unto them, take heed and beware of the leaven of the Parashayam and of the Sadduceeyam, the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, it is because we have taken no bread, which when Yahusha perceived, he said unto them, O you of little faith, why reason you among yourselves, because you have brought no bread? Do you not understand, neither remember the 5 loaves of the 5,000, and how many baskets you took up, neither the 7 loaves of the 4,000, and how many baskets you took up? How is it that you do not understand that I spoke it not to you concerning bread, that you should beware of the leaven of the Parashayam and of the Sadduceeyam, or the Pharisees and the Sadducees? Then understood they how that he bade them not beware of the leaven of bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Okay, so Yahuwah is letting them know, letting his Lamud Yam know, beware of the doctrine of these religious leaders, right? Why? Because they're unclean animals. They're unclean. They're not, if you know any history about the Pharisees and the Sadducees, I actually did, I can't remember the name of the episode, but one of the most recent episodes that I did, I actually talked about where the Sadduceeyam came from, because the root word in Sadduceeyam is Sadak, which was actually a Levitical priest during the time of Nathan, I want to say. Yes, Sadak was actually a Levitical priest, and he was honored, his household was honored later on, because I want to say it was in Jeremiah, or maybe it's Ezekiel, but the Levites had fallen away from doing what Yahuwah set them up to do in the temple. It's set for the house of Zadok, right? So Yahuwah actually placed the blessing on the house of Zadok and was like, now y'all are going to be my set apart priests in here. So with that being said, yeah, he's letting you know, like, beware of their doctrine, because like Yahuwah says in his word, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. So that's the reason why earlier when you heard me reading and my brain saw the word may and I said may, but may wasn't there, and once I realized may wasn't there, that's the reason why I corrected myself, because Yahuwah's word is Kadash, set apart. You know what I'm saying? Holy. So I don't want to add, even on accident, I don't want to add anything into his word that's not there. All right? So that's why you heard me correct myself. The next one, 1 Timothy 4, 1-2. This is one that most people know. And that reads as follows. Now the Ruach speaks expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing Ruachs and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry and commanding to abstain from food which Yahuwah has created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. And I read down to 3. So 3 is very important. When it says, and commanding to abstain from food which Yahuwah has created to be received with thanksgiving, of them which believe and know the truth. So that's the reason why I started off with the physical aspect of his dietary laws, because I do believe that we still shouldn't be eating that stuff. But I will say that the message that Yahuwah was relaying back then and now, that it was a spiritual thing. It was always a spiritual thing. So when he told us not to eat of it, it was always a spiritual thing. It was always a spiritual thing. That's the reason why I'm emphasizing the spiritual side of it. But look at verse 1 where it says, giving heed to seducing ruachs and doctrines of devils. So listening to the doctrine of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the Parashayam, the Sadakiyam, those are doctrines of devils, because it's not the truth. It's not what Yahuwah. They had folks doing all kinds of outlandish things that was so far away from what Yahuwah wanted his people to do even back then. But again, they didn't understand the spiritual aspects of what Yahuwah's law actually represented and how to carry that out spiritually. And they weren't even carrying out the things in the physical the way they were supposed to be carrying it out. They were doing all kinds of off-the-wall stuff. Then you had one group, the Pharisees, that believed in the resurrection. Then you had another group, the Sadducees, that didn't believe in resurrection. I mean, it was just, they was all over the place. And then seducing spirits. That's when you have people like, at the beginning of this podcast, I gave a disclaimer and I talked about the Kundalini spirit. I used to study about the Kundalini spirit. So yoga is what activates that Kundalini, according to that belief system, because a lot of people don't want to believe that yoga is a belief system. If you talk to a yogi, whether Kemetic or Hindu, they will let you know that those poses and those chants, the mudras and the mantras, they will let you know that those are worships. That's worship unto, in Hindu, it's Brahman. And the Kundalini acts as the same way the Ruach HaKodesh acts for Yahuwah. Yahuwah speaks to us through his Ruach. That's the same thing that happens with the Kundalini. They are yoked. Matter of fact, yoga literally means to yoke to. So they are yoked to this fallen angel that has named himself Brahman in that particular culture through the Kundalini spirit. Now, if you're not careful with your spirit, and you're just out here just doing whatever looks and sounds nice, a lot of people will say, well, it's just stretching. And I have witnessed people's physical results through practicing yoga. Like, their bodies are very fit. They seem to have a lot of peace. It's a lot of things that on the outside, it looks like, oh, it's just stretching, right? That's a seducing spirit. That's what this is talking about. This is a seducing spirit, because anytime you do any of those poses, or you say any of the things that come along with doing those poses, you are actually worshiping a fallen angel. And there's a lot of people that want to argue this, but I have literally heard people that are from those cultures say, yeah, that's exactly what we're doing, because that's their belief. They're called yogis. The instructors are called yogis, and they will tell you this. There's actually a tea called yogi tea that you could buy in any of your local grocery stores that I used to buy until I was like, it's called yogi just like the instructors. Come to find out, it's some yoga person that like made that tea specifically for people that want to have a Kundalini awakening, right? No, that's a seducing ruach. And that's the importance of having Ruach HaKodesh to fill us. Ruach HaKodesh is there, nothing else is getting in. So if you ever hear somebody say that they're possessed by demons and they supposedly have Ruach HaKodesh dwelling within them, they're lying to you. Ruach HaKodesh is the set apart spirit of Yahuwah. And greater is he that is in me, that's the Ruach HaKodesh, than them that is in the world. So if Ruach HaKodesh is dwelling within you and is greater than the ruachs that are in the world, how you figure that an unclean ruach is getting into you and you feel Ruach HaKodesh? That should be your first indicator that you do not have a Ruach HaKodesh dwelling within you, right? So when you think about that parable that Yahusha told about the house being swept clean and the spirits going out and then not finding any rest and coming back and seeing that the house is swept clean and put together, then goes and brings 7 ruachs deadlier than itself, and the last state of the man is worse than the first. That is literally what they're talking about. You have to be filled with Ruach HaKodesh. That is what Yahusha was talking about when he told that parable. It's not about just knowing what to do. It's about being filled. You can go out here and you can preach a house down, but if you don't have Ruach HaKodesh inside of you, you're an open vessel for something else to come in and fill you, okay? All right, I know I got off on a little tangent because I tend to do that, but it's okay. It was necessary. All right, so moving on. Revelation 12:9 is the last one I want to read. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Hasatan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So I don't know if anybody that's listening, I don't know how many of you all have the Apocrypha or have read the Apocrypha, but my Bible has the Apocrypha in it. And in Enoch, I love Enoch or Chanuk because it elaborates on the things in Genesis. I mean, it's got way more in there, but it's specifically the things in Genesis. And then you learn that man learned about war and weapon making and all this stuff from these fallen angels, right? Doctrines of devils, right? Because Yahuwah will tell you what he wants you to know. And if he hasn't told you, it's for one of two reasons. You're not ready to hear it, or he don't want you to know. Neither one of those reasons is any of our business, because it's his will be done. But just like in the garden with Adam and Hua, or with Hua, you got these fallen angels running around telling all kinds of information that Yahuwah has not told us. Because when Yahuwah told Adam not to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, he could have easily have told him, you'll spiritually die. He didn't. It wasn't, Adam didn't need that, because the main focus was just do what I said. You know what I'm saying? Just do what I said. Just obey me. But they didn't. And Hua was seduced away from the truth by a seducing spirit, by a doctrine of a devil. That's exactly what it looks like. Because all that serpent did was add one word into what Yahuwah told Adam. Yahuwah told Adam, in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. The serpent told Hua, you shall not surely die. So that little word not, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. Remember, that little word not made that whole sentence a lie. The enemy literally took the word of Yahuwah and added his own word in, and it made it a lie. Right? But it didn't seem inherently evil to Hua. If I was in the garden, I probably would have done the same thing she did, because you got to remember, they had never experienced death. You know what I'm saying? Death, they had never experienced death before. So she probably didn't even know what death was. You know what I'm saying? Might have known, but either way, even if she did know what death was, she may not have understood that it was a spiritual death that was going to happen and not a physical death. You know what I'm saying? But none of that mattered, because again, Yahuwah told Adam, don't do it. And then because Hua is regurgitating that to the serpent, at some point in time, Adam told Hua, so she knew not to do it as well. So it's the disobedience that messed them up, because they were listening to the wrong voice. You know what I'm saying? They were listening to doctrines of devils. That's the reason why you are what you eat. If you're listening to doctrines of devils and you're continuously consuming these doctrines of devils, you're going to sound just like that devil that you're consuming. That's also why it's very necessary, which leads me into my next point. It's very necessary to watch what you're consuming spiritually on all aspects, because what you consume spiritually is what will come out of you, the same way what you eat physically comes out of you. So if you go to Matthew 15, 10 and 11, all right? So this is when, let me go there real quick. This is when Yahusha is talking to them about eating, I want to say eating with unclean hands. No, hold on. My bad, yes. So so Yahusha and his Lamuda Yam are eating, and his Lamuda Yam are eating with unclean hands. And the Pharisees are like, yo, are you going to transgress our ancestors' traditions, the tradition of our elders by eating with unwashed hands? And so there's a lot that was said, but if you go down here to verse 10, it says, and he called the multitude and said unto them, hear and understand, not that which goes into the mouth defiles a man, but that which comes up out of the mouth, or comes out of the mouth, defiles a man. I added another word. Apologies. I added up. Comes out of the man, defiles them. So Yahusha is letting you know that it's not what you put into your mouth. That's not what defiles you. But what comes out of you, it defiles you because it's coming out of your heart. Mind you, remember, he's talking on the spiritual aspect, because what is it? I think it's in Isaiah. Yes. So it's in Yashar'al, Isaiah 29 and 13. Wherefore Adonai said, for as much as this people draw near me with their mouth, and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me, and their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men. Therefore, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work among this people, even a marvelous work and a wonder, for the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid. So I went down to verse 14, but that's the reason why Yahusha is letting them know that it's not what goes into the man that defiles them, but that which that comes out of them, because out of the abundance of the heart, the lips speak, right? That's what Yahusha is telling you. So if you abundantly have the doctrines of devils inside of your heart, that's what's going to come out your mouth. However, going back to what I was saying earlier, because I have an abundance of Yahuwah's word in my heart, that's usually what winds up coming out, even without me trying to make it come out. Like, that's what comes out. I might be struggling today because I'm trying to remember where it is that it was said. I know what was said, but I'm trying to remember what was said, because this is a teaching moment. So I want you guys to be able to go and look it up for yourself, because who am I? Nobody. You should always go back and look up what anybody tells you Yahuwah's word says, because you don't know their relationship. Matter of fact, you got a lot of folks out here, and I know there's a lot of folks about to turn this off when I say this, but you got a lot of Israelites that are still using God and Jesus, right? It's not about a name change. It's about two different beings. Jesus and Yahusha are not the same being. God and Yahuwah are not the same being. They are two separate beings. So you are worshiping devils when you worship Jesus and God. If that makes you feel some type of way, again, this is not the podcast for you, okay? Because we speak truth over here, and that is the truth. That is the deities of the Roman Catholic Church. Those are two deities. Isaiah 65 and 11, if you read it in the Bible that isn't the King James Version, where they took it out, if you go to the concordance, it even still has it in there. The name of one of the two demons that is fallen angels is listed in Isaiah 65 and 11. You have God and many, and it's spelled G-A-D, but then when you look it up, it's the phonetic spelling of it is G-A-W-D, which means it's pronounced God, right? God is the fortune of is the God. God is the deity over fortune. Many is the deity over fate or destiny. And those are the two things that you hear talked about the most in the Christian church. I know I used to be a Christian. So that's actually who you're worshiping when you're calling on God and Jesus. So with that being said, it's two different beings. Okay, I just want to keep emphasizing that. It's not about, oh, this is how his name is said in this language and over here. No, because that's translation. We don't translate names. We transliterate names. That's a whole different lesson for another day. But when we say we don't call on JC, we're telling you we're not calling on that entity. We call on a completely different being named Yahusha. A completely different being named Yahuwah. They are not the same, okay? Hopefully that is resonating within your minds, ruminating in your minds, because I have a lot of people that want to argue about the name change. I don't care what you call that thing over there in Christianity, but in Yashar'al, he is Yahuwah and Yahusha, okay? Those are their names. And that's a period behind that, all right? According to Yahuwah. Hallelujah. So I just want to read from Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 10. It says, to whom shall I speak and give warning? that they may hear. Behold, their ear is uncircumcised, and they cannot hearken or hear. Behold, the word of Yahuwah is unto them a reproach. They have no delight in it. So these are literally reprobated minded people, okay? Yahuwah is talking to the parts of Yashar'al that have fallen away from him during this time, because there were several times that Yashar'al was just like, they kept turning away from Yahuwah and turning away from Yahuwah towards the different deities that were being worshipped by the nations around them, right? And this is one of those instances, and this is what Yahuwah was saying about them. He literally said that their ear is uncircumcised, right? And they cannot hear. So when you think about the circumcision of the genitals, right? They remove that foreskin that's covering the towards the tip of the shaft, right? So if you have uncircumcised ears, just think of covering a flat bean over your ear hole. A piece of flesh just grows over your ear hole. It would make it difficult for you to hear if you had something blocking your ear passage, your earway. You know what I'm saying? And so that's essentially what he's saying. Then he says, behold, the word of Yahuwah is unto them a reproach. So they don't find, matter of fact, they have no delight in it. So when they hear the word of Yahuwah, it makes them upset. They have no delight in it. It's a reproach. It's a bad thing to them, right? And they can't even hear him anyway. They can't hear his word. Now, when we're saying hearing his word, we're talking about in the spiritual sense. Because it's a lot of people that are actually physically hearing the word of Yahuwah. But spiritually, it's not. It's going in one ear and straight out the other. It's not sinking in. It's not processing through their brain and through their spirit. You know what I'm saying? So that's essentially what he's talking about. And again, Yahuwah was rebuking Yashar'al through Jeremiah because of the wickedness he observed there. He was telling them to repent, but they were unrepentant. And that's what having uncircumcised ears truly represents. Okay? So here are some of the things that you hear in Yahushua's word, in Yahuwah's word, apologies, as far as it comes to eating. Okay? So if you turn to Joshua or Yahushua 1:8, this book of the Torah shall not depart out of your mouth, but you shall meditate therein day and night, that you may guard to do according to all that is written therein. For then you shall make your way prosperous, and then you shall have good success. Okay? So he literally said, meditate therein day and night. And he said, this book of the Torah shall not depart out of your mouth. This book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth. You should meditate therein day and night. All right? And the only way you're able to do that is if you're constantly eating. That's how you meditate. You remember Yahuwah said, I shall keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on me? Yeah. You're in perfect peace because you're meditating on Yahuwah's word. And for those that are being obedient to Yahuwah, it's not a reproach. It's a means for gratitude. It's a means for praise. It's a means to rejoice. Because for those that are obedient to Yahuwah, he has good things for you. It's those that are not being obedient to Yahuwah, the disobedient, those are the ones that find it as a reproach because it's literally condemning you. Yahuwah's word will condemn you if you're disobedient. And that's just how it is. Then you have Psalm 1 and 2. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Yep. Boom. Hallelujah. So I said 1 and 2. But his delight, says, talk about delight again, is in the Torah of Yahuwah, and in his Torah he meditates day and night. Let me go back. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, so that's seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the Torah of Yahuwah, and in his Torah he meditates day and night. So he's letting you know that you're not being taught by what it says. nor sits in the way of sinners. You're not out here just listening to all kinds of things that anybody's telling you. Like, you are literally delighting on the word, in the word of Yahuwah day and night, right? Meditating day and night. The thing about that is, it's not saying that you can't be amongst people that are continuously sinning, because we still have sin that we are dealing with as well. But that should not be who's teaching you. Like, you got an issue with somebody, and then you go complain about that somebody to somebody that's not set apart. We're not doing that. Because that person's not going to give you set apart advice. They might say, we ride at dawn. You know what I'm saying? Like, something like that. No, we're not doing stuff like that. Nor sits in the seat of the scornful. I guess that kind of falls into the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the Torah of Yahuwah. Okay, I already read that. But that's eating. Your delight is in the Torah of Yahuwah is because it fills you up. When you sit and you really just go through the word very slowly, you know what I'm saying? Yahusha fills you up. That was the whole reason why the miracle happened with the fish, the 5 loaves and the 5,000, or the 7 loaves and the 4,000, because he was letting you know that I have more than enough to feed you. I am more than enough to feed you. That was the whole reason why those miracles took place to begin with. You know what I'm saying? It was other things in there, but that's not the focus. And I have a tendency of getting sidetracked and just going off on a whole nother tangent. And I'm not trying to do that with y'all, because I'm pretty sure it's already going to be long enough. But I do want to read Deuteronomy Debarayam 6:4-9. This is what we call the Shama. Your raiment. Oh, that's not it. That is not it. That is definitely chapter 7. Okay, apologies. So it says, "Hear, O Yashar'al, Yahuwah Alua, your Yahuwah is one, and you shall love Yahuwah Alua with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates." So Yahuwah is literally telling you about how to come in covenant with him, right? Because the word of Yahuwah is Yahusha. He's telling you that you come in covenant through Yahusha, his word. But listen to verse 5. "And you shall love..." No, that's not it. 6. Apologies. "And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart." So going back to what we were saying, as far as out of the abundance of the heart, the lips speak. And Yahusha said that it's not that which goes into a man that defiles him, but that which comes out of the man that defiles him. You know what I'm saying? So these words, the words that Yahuwah is speaking. So anything that Yahuwah speaks is his word, right? Who is Yahusha, right? So we're learning from Yahusha, right? Yahusha needs to be in your heart. If you go back and listen to the episode called Ark of the Covenant, I think that's what it's called. I hope that's what it's called. I hope I made it that easy. I think it's called Ark of the Covenant and the Testament, or Testimony, I mean. But if you go back and listen to that, you'll understand why it's important for Yahuwah's word, Yahusha, to be in your heart. And that's because your heart is the Ark of your covenant with Yahuwah. And Yahusha is the testimony that Yahuwah puts inside of the Ark of the Covenant. If you go back to Exodus 25, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Yeah, Exodus 25. Because in verse 16, he literally tells Moshe that you're going to build this ark, and I will give you the testimony to put inside the ark. Well, that's because Yahusha is the testimony and the ark is our heart, okay? But I go way more into detail in that episode, so I do recommend going to listen to that to understand fully what it is that I'm talking about, if Yahuwah hasn't already given you the revelation about it. Because, I mean, I don't know everything. But in order for Yahuwah's word to be in your heart, you have to consume his word. So that should be a given. So that just goes back to what Yahusha was saying in John chapter 6, Yehukanan chapter 6, where he says, I'm the bread of life. You got to eat my flesh. You got to drink my blood. A lot of people, when they hear that, especially people that have no understanding, and I don't mean that in a condescending way. I just mean that in a factual way. They have no understanding because Yahuwah hasn't given it to them. But Anyway, those people, a lot of them, I've heard them say, well, y'all are talking about cannibalism. No, because it's a spiritual thing. He's not talking about actually consuming his physical body. He's talking about consuming the word of Yahuwah, which is exactly what being a clean animal does. If you're a clean animal, you're going to nourish your body, right? Because our body is the temple of the Ruach HaKodesh. So we have to nourish that temple by feeding it properly. So when you feed the temple, the word, the Ruach HaKodesh remains within you. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. But if you're constantly doing other things, like for instance, if you're someone that still feels like it's okay to watch horror movies, horror movies are horrible because all of these things have spirits attached to them. It's just you want to make sure you're engaged in the things that have Ruach HaKodesh attached. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, you watch a whole bunch of horror movies, but you don't really sit and study the Bible enough or study Yahuwah's word enough, then that spirit of fear is one of the main spirits that's behind horror movies. Then you have anxiety that's attached to it. You have frustration. It's a lot of things that come with watching those. That's what you're feeding yourself. When you watch a lot of these influencers that are like, get ready with me, or, day in the life of stuff like that, it seems very innocent, right? It's a seducing spirit though, because it starts to make you covet the same things that they have. You start coveting these things. You want what they have. You want a life like them. Thing about it is, Yahuwah might not have created you to have a life like them. He might have created you to have a life that's similar to a poor person. You're right above homelessness. That might be how he has you living, because for whatever reason, I don't even have a good a reason to give you, but Yahuwah, if that's the life that he chose for you to have, that's the life that you're going to have. And so now you're sitting here coveting that life, and that moves you away from Yahuwah's will for your life. Or let's just say that he desires for you to have just a comfortable life. You're not rich, you're not poor, you're just like somewhere in between, right? But you're looking at this 20-year-old that's able to move into a $8,000 penthouse in New York City because they're an influencer and they might sell t-shirts and call it a clothing line. You know what I'm saying? Like, you start watching videos like that all the time, then that's when that covetousness and that envy and that jealousy and sometimes ungratefulness starts to come up, because you start getting mad at Yahuwah. Why can't I have this? Why are these people in the world having this, but I can't have this? Ain't I your child? All that is stemming from what you're eating. But if you're constantly eating his word, gratefulness, joy, love, peace, all that stuff is coming up out of you, because that's what you're eating. You know what I'm saying? You're constantly remembering, you're meditating on his promises to his set apart children. And so, yeah, you might look at something like that and be like, dang, at 20, I was struggling. You might have one of those thoughts, but at the end of the day, like, I'll use myself for an example. When people look at my life, they're probably like, dang, like, what is she doing with herself? I am in my 40s. I live with my father because that's where Yahuwah told me to be right now. And when I tried to find my own place, Yahuwah wouldn't let me. And I had the money for it, had the credit score for it, like nothing would work out. I don't have a traditional job. I have income that comes in, but I mainly have Yahuwah putting it on the heart of other people to sow into me, and then that's what happens. I don't ask for money now, and I don't ask for other things. Yahuwah told me to rely on him for everything. So every day, I have to rely on him for the things that I need. That's the life that he has given me. Do I like it? No. Would I love to be out here with my own place, doing my own thing, and all that other stuff? Yes. Why wouldn't I? And I have a very strong work ethic back when I did work for Babylon. But that's not the life that Yahuwah has for me. So if I sit and I'm constantly watching videos with 20-year-olds with penthouse apartments, I'm going to get upset. I'm going to start feeling depressed and trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. But if I'm constantly eating Yahuwah's word, meditating on his word day and night, then I'll come to the realization that I came to a long time ago, which is, yeah, they have those things right now, but when this world passes away, they're not going to be able to take none of that with them. And where's their soul going to be? Because if they're not coming into covenant with Yahuwah through Yahusha, they're going to be burning in the lake of fire. So I'd rather not have any of that stuff right now and then dwell with Yahuwah and Yahusha in the renewed Jerusalem when this world passes away than have all that stuff and then perish when this world passes away. You know what I'm saying? But those are things that are able to come to my mind because of how Yahuwah has taught me through his son Yahusha. So that's why I'm bringing that stuff up. That's why Yahusha said that he is the bread of life. You got to eat him, eat his flesh, drink his blood. So eating his flesh, he's the word. You got to eat that bread, okay? Man does not live on bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahuwah. And I think it's ironic that he uses the word bread, but he's letting you know that the true bread, just like Yahusha said, is that bread that comes down from heaven, which is him, the manna from heaven. You know what I'm saying? We live by every word that proceeds forth out of the mouth of Yahuwah. Now, Yahusha quoted that. I can't remember where. Go look it up yourself. But I do remember where he quoted it from. That's actually in Leviticus 19 and 18. Almost verbatim is what Leviticus 18 and 19 says. 19 and 18 says. And I'll go there real quick. Because there's a lot of things that Yahusha said that you know, people have discounted the doctrines of devils, have told us to discount what we call the Old Testament because, oh, that was for back then, and what we call the New Testament is for now. But a lot of what Yahusha said in the New Testament was stuff that was already said in what we call the Old Testament, in the law especially. Matter of fact, Leviticus is literally the book of the law, okay? Listen to Leviticus 19 and 18. You shall not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as you love yourself. I am Yahuwah. Okay, no. I'm wrong. It was Deuteronomy 8, if I'm not mistaken. I started reading it, but that's another one that he said. It's Deuteronomy 8, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's definitely Deuteronomy 8 and 3. But listen, I was in the vicinity, okay? But that's another one that Yahusha said that people don't understand. You should love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's Leviticus 19 and 18. But what I was looking for is Deuteronomy 8 and 3, okay? And he humbled you and suffered you to hunger and fed you with manna, which you knew not, neither did your fathers know, that he might make you to know that man does not live by bread only, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahuwah, man lives. So that's Deuteronomy. That's the book of words. That's Deuteronomy, Debar Yam, words, okay? Commandments. That's a commandment. You know what I'm saying? You live by the word of Yahuwah. Period, son. All right? So I'm just going to end with Yehukanan 15 to 27. That's a long one, but that's where we're going to end today because I've already ran my mouth. And mind you, there's a whole lot more to be said as far as this is concerned, but this is just what Yahuwah had me to say on this episode. The thing about it is I shouldn't be telling you everything. I'm only telling you what Yahuwah told me to tell you, but you need to go seek his face so you can get all the other things. For instance, I'll even tell you guys an example. So earlier when I was reading, which one was it? Deuteronomy 14 and 21, when it talks about not eating anything that dies of itself. And then when it says that you can give that to the stranger and the alien. So Yahuwah hasn't yet given me, I did inquire it of him, but he hasn't yet given it to me, the reason of what that means spiritually. That's the reason why I didn't bring it up. And I do fully believe that he didn't give it to me as of yet, but he told me to go ahead and make this episode is because it's not for me to tell you everything. You got to go to him about something. You know what I'm saying? And yes, you should be going to him about the things that I have already said, but you should also be going to him about the things that I didn't say. Because again, he is our teacher, not an individual. He teaches us through his Ruach HaKodesh, and Ruach HaKodesh brings back to remembrance the word of Yahuwah, Yahusha. All right, this is Yehukanan, John 14, starting in verse 15, going to verse 27. If you love me, Guard my commandments, or some translations it says keep. And I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter. That's the Ruach HaKodesh, that he may abide with you forever. Even the Ruach Amatz, which is truth, the Ruach of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it sees him not, neither knows him, but you know him, for he dwells with you and shall be in you. I will not leave you comfortless, I will come to you. Yet a little while, and the world sees me no more. But you see me, because I live, you shall live also. And that day at that day you shall know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. He that has my commandments and guards them, he it is that loves me, and he that loves me shall be loved of my Father, and I will love him, and I will manifest myself to him. So you can't even perceive, see, feel, know Yahusha without Yahuwah, right? And I just want to go back up. He that has my commandments and guards them. He that has, who are the commandments given to? He that has my commandments and guards them. That's not saying that if you're not an Israelite, you can't be grafted into the Israelites and become an Israelite that way. A spiritual Israelite. Because you are listening to and following and obeying the word of Yahuwah. Right? And you have come to the conclusion that Yahuwah is Yahuwah and Yahusha is Yahusha and nobody else, right? So yeah, you're a spiritual Israelite at that point. And there are all kinds of instances in what we call the Old Testament of people that were counted as righteous that were not natural born Israelites, right? Ruth, who's also in the bloodline of Yahusha. Yeah, she was a Moabitess. She was from Moab. Moab was the son of Lot. That was Abraham's nephew, right? The Israelites come through Abraham. So even though Lot is related to Abraham, he's not through Abraham or Isaac or Jacob. So they're not Israelites. They're not the set apart chosen people. So she was not a set apart chosen person, but she's in the lineage of Yahushua HaMashiach because of who she married. Boaz, or Boaz, as they say in the United States. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, and starting in verse 22, Yehuda said unto him, not Iscariot, Adonai, how is it that you will manifest yourself unto us and not unto the world? Yahusha answered and said unto him, if a man loves me, he will guard my words, and my Father will love him, and he will come unto him and make our abode, and we will come unto him and make our abode with him. He that loves me not guards not my words, and the word which you hear is not mine, but my Father's which sent me. So he's like, all this stuff that I'm telling you, this is not my words. This is what Yahuwah said. So the way I hear that in my head is, if you got an issue with what I'm saying, argue with Yahuwah, not me, because this is his word. I didn't say it, he said it. So you got an issue with him, not me. You know what I'm saying? That's how I literally interpret that in my brain. You know what I'm saying? These things have I spoken unto you, being yet present with you, but the Comforter, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance whatsoever I have said unto you. Peace I leave with you, and my peace I give unto you. Not as the world gives, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Okay? And again, that fear and that trouble all comes from you eating the wrong things spiritually. You can't have a spiritual diet of secular music, horror movies, reality television shows, and gossip sessions with your friends and think you finna walk around quoting scripture. Or, I mean, you might quote scripture, but you're not going to obey Yahuwah. Let's just put it that way. You can quote scripture all day long. Doesn't mean you're obedient to Yahuwah. You're not going to walk in the Ruach, feeding your spirit that all day long. Especially if you are spiritually depriving your Ruach, your heart, of the word of Yahuwah. Meditate day and night. That's what Yahuwah said. That's what Joshua said that he does. Meditate on the law of Yahuwah day and night. That's how you endure until the end. By being careful of what you are spiritually eating. And yes, I do recommend watch what you are physically eating, because our body is the temple of the Ruach HaKodesh. When you take care of this temple spiritually, then a lot of times physically you'll be inclined to take care of the temple, and that takes care of the psychological and the emotional aspect of you as well. All right, but that's all I'm going to say for the day. So, if you'd like to get in contact with me, by all means, please reach out to me at replenishme@gmail.com. That's RIPLENISHB@gmail.com. Please, if you are someone that is reaching out about something that has nothing to do with Yahuwah, Yahusha, his kingdom, or anything of the sort, his law, please do not reach out to me. I am not interested, but I do love all of my mashpachah. I pray that you're having a wonderful day today, and until next time, shalom.